Exactly.
Borough. It was like the first industrial park, and they put all of those retention ponds in. And they had
Yeah.
all that grass. I remember because I used to take my dad over there for his drugs. When he was retired. But it was so beautiful. We used to walk there. We used to drive over there just to take that walk, and it was
Like a
so
promenade.
beautiful. Pardon me?
You're talking about the promenade?
No, I'm talking about over off of Shannonville Road. But you could,
Oh,
it's
all the avenues over there.
Yeah, it's that big industrial park, the first one, and it was so peaceful, and there was all kinds of birds there and nature, and it was kept immaculate. I mean, there was nothing ever.
Well, we've talked about part of that with the pool at the one stormwater.
Yeah, we did.
That we could put.
It's an option.
It appears we are live.
Henry,
Sorry.
Henry,
I have to wait.
I know when this.
Yes.
But we can tie so many things in.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Call it to order, sir.
All right.
All right, it is 5:45 PM. This is a Recreation Committee meeting. In attendance, members, Mr. Trable and Mrs. Jordan is standing in for Ms. Johnson. Mr. Roof is not here as of yet. So without further ado, we will move on to the agenda. The first item is the discussion on the Fountain Hill Pool and the future for this year and beyond. I'll turn it over to you, Mrs. Jordan.
Well, I think we've talked about this for years, and we always wanted to hold on to the dream of the pool. And certainly, as somebody who was the queen of the pool back in the day, it would break my heart to not have it. But this past year, after last year's disaster, and it was a disaster, trying to staff it, trying to maintain it, and then all the repairs that would have to be made, we put it out to the public, and we asked the public first in a survey form what they thought, and we didn't really get much of a response. And then we had a town meeting where we let everybody know that they could come and voice their opinion if they felt strongly about the pool or not having the pool. And when the town meeting happened, we had a turnout of 19 people, and 3 people who spoke to say that they didn't think we should have it anymore. So as much as it pains me to say it, I do believe that the people have spoken with their silence, that it's not an issue for most people, for the majority of residents. They don't want to see this continue, and they're not really interested in ever having their taxes raised to sustain it. And I think it's time to, I don't know if you want to just say we're going to close it this year, or if we're just going to say let's close it. I feel that the majority of residents are ready to move on to different ways to spend a recreation budget. What do you think, Mr. Trable?
I agree with you, because I was looking at the numbers. Last year, we were supposed to be open for 33 days. We lost a few days because of the inclement weather, but there were only like about 5 days and we were over 100 people. And some days you only had 1 person or 2 people, and it was all pretty low attendance. We had some pretty nice weather last year. So,
And the problem was that some days that were nice, they would pay to come in, the people would come in at 12 o'clock and they would pay the fee, and then at 2:30, 3 o'clock, we would have to make them leave because some of the staff left, and then we didn't have enough staff to cover the people, and you couldn't run the pool without the amount of staff. I mean, there were so many problems to overcome that I just can't see that being an ongoing headache and problem for a community that really has moved on. The majority of people in this community have moved on from that pool.
I agree with that, because
Jason, do you want to talk a little bit about the concerns or the challenges with shutting it down for just a year, for mothballing it, from your perspective, from a maintenance side?
Creates a lot of issues with the pumping system. It's just not good to
I think it's time for the recommendation to go to council that the pool should not be open again.
I agree.
All right, we have an agenda item tonight to establish the direction for the pool, so whether that's this year or permanent, it's left open-ended, so, we can move the recommendation of the committee to council at that point for the agenda tonight at 7 PM.
And also, we had a lot of problems with the YMCA. I mean, they didn't really perform as well as they should have, and they went up with the price, but like about 10 grand, I believe.
Yeah, and my concern this year is I don't know how they are doing with staffing either. It just looks like everyone is having the same struggles, and that makes it even a harder decision. Do you want to do public comment at the end on all the agenda items, or do you want to take it as? Okay, all right, very good. Any more thoughts on the pool?
I will say that I believe when we do take the recommendation to council, that it should be that we close it once and for all, not just delay it for a year, because
I
that
agree- I
won't solve
agree with that.
anything.
Okay, very good. We will move that forward then to council with that recommendation. The next item on the agenda is the summer park program. Obviously, that had been impacted in the past by COVID, so I'm not sure exactly what Ms. Johnson wanted to discuss on that. I don't know if she provided anything to you.
I guess what we would have to do is start looking for staff.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my thought is the first step would be obviously to advertise for seasonal help. How many folks did we use in the past for that?
Well, we usually had whoever was in charge, and maybe 3 to 4, or sometimes 5, Jason, how many were there? Usually 4 to 5, that usually the person who was in charge kind of brought along. I mean, we interviewed all of them, but that was the way we got them. And for so long, we had one person who did it, and it was kind of like an ongoing thing, and then she retired and everything and then COVID came, so everything got a little weird. But that is the beginning. You have to advertise and see if there's, I see some of the boroughs have already done that. I've seen it on Facebook where they've already advertised for their summer staff.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely need to do that sooner than later.
Yeah.
How well were the, I think they weren't, the program wasn't that well planned the last time we had it either.
Well, the last time we had it was just a nighttime program, and we just hired one young gentleman, and he more or less kind of winged it, right? He was just there. He was more or less, I guess if you wanted to break it down, the last time we had a real program was we had the one young gentleman who ran it, but he was more or less just distributing equipment, like basketballs, or I don't think there was much of an actual program going on. I mean, people were there, but you're right, the attendance was down because it was just more or less, can I have a volleyball, that kind of thing. I mean, if you're going to have staff, you really have to develop a program where.
Yeah, no, and I think that would be, certainly the first step is advertising for staff and then seeing what we get
right.
and then move from there to see how elaborate we can
Right.
roll out
Right.
versus activities and those type of structured events. That could be difficult depending on, the response that we get.
A lot of communities, they have cut out their summer programs too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to staffing at this point. The post-COVID world, unfortunately, has been difficult to emerge from in an employment standpoint and seasonal employment. Some of the salaries that you're seeing, the hourly wages that you're seeing out there are extremely high, and even they're having trouble attracting people. So that is definitely an ongoing challenge with a lot of the neighboring municipalities as they try and structure it.
I mean, a lot of young kids today can go out in the summer and honestly make $22 an hour to do summer work somewhere that And I don't know if I don't know if we can meet that or match that, or, that's a lot of money, you know?
It is.
Well, and that's
More
it,
than I
so.
ever made.
But you're right, Eric, we have to start with the advertising, and see, we'll go from there as the interest. And if there isn't, well, we'll work on that as we go along.
Yeah, so, I mean, based on the recommendation of the committee, we can, I'll put an ad together and put something out, and then, you know, once we see where the response is, then we can, you know, decide from there based on interviews, and, you know, if we get hopefully a handful of people.
And if we don't get enough, we just, we'll scratch that off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any other option, sadly. I mean, I certainly don't want to, especially with the, you know, the going, excuse me, a different direction with the pool. The one thing I did forget to mention in the pool that Ms. Johnson had said to me was that she was interested in investigating the possibility if Bethlehem would take on all of our residents. So I don't know that they would do that without maybe a contribution from the borough. But at this point, you know, that's something I can investigate if we think that's a good idea, to see if, you know, much like they did with the library, is would they be willing to take on Fountain Hill residents to their pools? Because they have like a radius for their pools, if I'm not mistaken.
I think the only problem you'd have with that is that Bethlehem itself is not opening most of their pools. So for them to take on another community, even though it's not a big community, the fact that they had to close so many of their own, I don't know that they'd welcome that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anybody over there in that department, but it doesn't sound, it seems like everybody else, they've got so many problems just to sustain what they have, that I don't know, because that would open a can of worms in other communities. You know, if they're doing that with Fountain Hill and Freemsboro, you know, there's just all these little municipalities that could want to do that because they don't have a pool. It's worth looking into, but I don't hold out much hope for that.
No, I can ask the question, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
similarly, Allentown is looking at opening only 2 of their pools this year, and they're not even sure they're going to be able to staff them to keep them open as much as they want. So I'm sure Bethlehem's sharing a lot of those challenges, but I'll ask the question. I mean, just, no, exactly. So I had forgotten that, I'm sorry. But yeah, in regards to back to the summer park program, I mean, my thought is we advertise it, we see what kind of response we get. If we don't, you know, for what we're advertising the rate is, I mean, step 1 could be to look at increasing the hourly for, you know, to try and get candidates, or, you know, obviously the other sad option is that we have to forego that as well, just due to lack of personnel, and that may be a reality.
The problem is if you do hire someone for a high price and not too many people show up, then you're losing money.
Oh, I mean, I think in either way, yeah, it's, you know, it's the value you're providing to the community. But again, yeah, if we don't see a lot of community response, then yeah, obviously your value isn't quite as measurable. But we don't know that, I guess, until we try, because, you know, there's just the great unknowns of so many years, you know, 2 years of COVID restricting activities. So I'm hopeful we get some interest and we could try something and as an alternative to the pool and see what happens. All right. The next item that she had asked me to place on the agenda is the park building and pavilion roofs, which are not imminent, but something we need to keep in mind. Jason, do you want to talk a little bit about the park, or the building and the pavilion, what the scope of work looks like on that, and your guess on time frame?
Is that just the roof that needs to be repaired for the pavilion?
For the pavilion, I mean, obviously, the roof's not leaking now, but, the fascia area, and the boards and stuff like that kind of look like they're seeing better days. You know, keep the appearance of the park up, something we should be talking
Yeah, I think we should do that, just keep the buildings well maintained, because we can always use it, well, Public Works can use the buildings for various things, and the fire department uses the buildings for like the Christmas tree sales. So it's a good idea to maintain the buildings so they don't deteriorate.
about. Yeah, well, that specific building is, you know, obviously, no, it's a wonderful building, it looks beautiful. We just want to keep it that way.
Yeah, and I think that ties into the next item, which is a bit more pressing, is there is some repair needed for the playground equipment itself. So Jason was able to get from the vendor a quote, a CoStar's quote, and we are looking about $8,000 in repairs to the playground itself that are safety issues that need to be addressed.
Is that the swings and the,
Swings, the whole jungle gym, or
oh, all of it?
yeah.
We do a monthly test or a monthly walkthrough of the park just to make sure that nothing's getting broke that we're not aware of. And every spring I usually have Paul Graham from Police Associates come out and give us an overview of what he thinks needs to be repaired or how we can keep everything. Obviously, you know, that set is over 25 years old too, which is, you know, I mean, $10,000, Eric said, had said 8,000. I'm gonna say, just because I know that there's another piece that needs to be addressed, probably about $10,000 worth of repairs on that. And that's not cheap, especially now, it's even more expensive.
And this needs to be done before we open it?
I mean, I would think we should move on it pretty quick.
Right.
I mean, that the park's gonna be heavily used
Yeah.
in the next couple of months.
Do we have any, you mentioned it before, do we have anything left in Bacchanalia funds?
Yeah, we do have that. We also, obviously, if the pool is not being opened, there's quite a bit of funds there that it would be no issue to move over to take care of this. One of my other thoughts was, St. Luke's is always, and I had a conversation with Patricio this morning at the fire truck event, that they're always looking for stuff that supports their vision in the community. And obviously, Parks and Recreation and wellness is an important part of that. So maybe that's something we go to St. Luke's with for this year and say, look at it as a global thing. Does the playground equipment, do we look at refreshing and updating it? One of the things Jason had alluded to was leaving the posts in the ground, and you can pretty much put a whole new play set on top of them. So you don't have to resync the anchors. They can put whatever on there if you want to modernize something.
For the jungle gym or for the swings?
You know, those, I'm not saying by any means, again, that it needs to be repaired now. And according to the gentleman that I speak with from, Little Dykes, we can use, I guess there's a bunch of different ways we could do it. You can refurbish the whole unit, or, kind of continue to use the uprights and add different pieces, because like all of this, the tunnels and slides and stuff is all pretty much plastic and metal. And like every year you kind of have to upgrade, and like some of those slides are starting to wear out now, and really should be deciding whether we want to do some kind of upgrade with that.
How long have we had slides?
I'm gonna guess they're probably 20 to 25 years old. And every year we throw a little bit of money out of here and there, replacing stuff that gets rusted or broke or whatever. We don't paint anything, we use powder coating and rubberized.
It might be time to take a big step instead of just patching this and patching that.
And for a little more ADA situations,
Yeah,
You know, obviously we have that handicap swing on there that the kids broke that,
yeah, twice, right?
you know, and now it's broke again.
Yeah,
You know, stuff like that, you gotta either fix it or take it down.
yeah.
Costs a lot of money.
Now,
And it's not-
Jason, when you have it powder coated, you send that out.
So, all that stuff is either, like, when the decks get replaced from that stuff, it all comes brand new from Little Ice. You don't really send stuff out to get powder coated through a separate company. I usually order new stuff. A couple of years ago, we did a couple pieces of the decks. The rubber and the powder coating was coming off, was getting sharp. We pulled it off and just replaced it, and then it goes under warranty. Where like, one of the pieces that we're replacing in some of this quoting was actually under warranty. I mean, that part gets high traffic, a lot of people playing on it, so,
Going to be a lot more this summer.
yeah.
And that's why I don't wonder if, you know, talking about the pavilion, the building and the playground to St. Luke's and looking if that's something that they want to invest you know, as a major community project to, you know, rehabilitate and or refresh isn't a bad idea with that. But I mean, even just the good news is that the safety repairs we can certainly cover
Yeah, I think we
in the
should,
short term.
yeah, I think we should recommend to council that we move ahead with that
Okay.
for this season, because you just need one bad accident. You just need one thing to go wrong. And
Yeah, the safety repairs, I mean, those are under the, those are under the threshold. So, I mean, I don't know that we need an official action for the CoStar's purchase. So we wanted to, one, make you aware of it, and two, also let you know that there's a potential that it's probably a good conversation to have with St. Luke's as they're looking for ideas. Their fiscal year's coming up, and Patricia had mentioned something, so I think that's a good project. All right. The next thing, Brockwell Middle School uses the softball field there. They had requested to use it again this year, which I certainly have no problem with administratively. The issue before council is they have requested a fee waiver, which apparently has been granted in the past. So it's on the committee agenda. It is also on the council agenda. So if you would like to move that with a recommendation, feel free to do so.
Jason, we never had any problem with that? No, I didn't think so.
Very good. Yeah, they provided a schedule. They've been very good in communicating with us, and they've been very thoughtful about not, when the field's been muddy, they've requested to use the outfield of the upper ball field so they don't destroy the park. So they're fantastic. So.
They're gonna use the one up on top of the pool.
No, they're going to use the softball field down on along Spiegel.
Oh, okay.
But it had been, due to the snow and rain, it had been in it was soggy. So they did some practice. But their first game is March 29th is their first home game.
They do a nice job of that meetings, and they jump in with us a lot, also.
All right, so we will move that with a favorable recommendation. The only other thing is privilege of the floor from the public. Any comments on any of the agenda items tonight that we've discussed? You feel free. I'm asking you to use the microphone, please, so our folks out there and watching on the live stream can hear us. And we'll just need your name and address for the record then.
It's on. Was. Stu McCandless, 1011 Pawnee Street. I want to go back to the pool. I have a couple of things. First off, pool outside, very, very expensive proposition. We're all worried about money. Everybody's always, all we hear is taxes, people complaining. This is going to be a huge expense. Pools don't ever come in at budget or under budget. Chemicals change. Chemicals change in how much they cost very quickly. You have no way of controlling that. That's how it's set, that's how it works. Jason knows, Jason understands. He's a certified pool operator. When you have a public pool, certified pool operator is to be there at the pool while the pool is open. That takes Jason away from his other duties. Unless you have a second one that you have. That's state setups. Again, very expensive proposition. To do that, you'd have to have that pool full every day, which, what's our capacity? 200, 300 people at the pool? I'm not sure.
I think it's based on lifeguards.
Yeah, but it's based on lifeguards and size also, by the volume of the pool. Volume of the pools also comes into play. You can't jam too many into it. There's a whole set of things that have to be calculated with that. Again, if you're not at full capacity and you're not charging a decent price, you're not gonna be paying for the pool. The pool is gonna be a huge expense. It's a money pit. I've worked on one for a school district for 14 years inside. It's an absolute money pit. Schools have to have it. They have swim teams, they have this, they have that. They're money pits. My thought would be, with the way it's been, I've seen it decline. I've been here since the 80s. And I've seen the amount of people decline steadily, year after year after year. Everybody complains, where's the pool, where's the pool, where's the pool? But nobody's there. So take it and make it into something useful, more worthwhile. You got a lot of young families, you got a lot of families with kids, you got a lot of families with dogs now. So why don't we take that area and make it into a nice recreation area that can be utilized, put a little waterfall, a little, nice little beautiful things for birds to come around, put a small dog park in. Bet you that would go over a lot bigger and better than a pool would. And if you want to have some water, if anything, look at one of those little stand-up water world, waterworks things for the kids. That's, you know, because the little kids are the ones that are going to use it more than the adults. Most of the adults come, they lay outside and go in the water once every 10 minutes and every 2 hours and go lay on the side of the pool and tan when they're here. That's just my opinion of it, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCandless. Any other members of the public? All right, hearing none. Anybody have anything for go to the order for Recreation Committee? All right. That concludes the Recreation Committee meeting. Those who are following us live, there will be a new event posted for the council meeting. That starts at 7 p.m. this evening. Thank you.
What's going on here now?
I think you could have started a little bit later.
Well, it's scheduled, it's advertised for
It's
5:30.
advertised. It's advertised. for
So,
5:30.
I know.
So, but I mean, I also thought that that there was,
You were expecting a
I did expect more.
mob of people.